Joining us right now, Senator Rand Paul, Junior Senator from Kentucky and presidential candidate. Thanks for joining us, Senator Paul.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Listen, we got to talk to you about what the president signed last night, what they're calling the Freedom Act. It's sort of a revised version of the Patriot Act, and it definitely changes the way the NSA was doing a lot of this data collection. Are you satisfied with this law? Do you think it went far enough in protecting Americans' privacy rights?
You know what I think is kind of humorous is the president acts like, oh, yes, he's been part of making the system better, balancing privacy and liberty. Well, he was forced to do this. His program was declared illegal by the court. He refused to shut it down. So Congress finally told him that he can't collect all of our phone records anymore. I think it's a step in the right direction. My fear is that we could possibly be replacing one bulk collection with another. The government was collecting it, that we still may be able to have bulk collection under the phone company's auspices. So I'm still concerned. I'm also concerned that under Executive Order 12333, the government may still be collecting a whole lot of other data that we're just still unaware of.
Yeah, you say that it's a step in the right direction. I look at the law, and it doesn't seem to be like there's that much difference at all. Not really all that much, except that now the bulk data collection is done by the phone company, which was always the case. And now you have to go and ask the phone company for the data, but that won't be a problem. It never has been a problem. So really, nothing really changes. But it may have slow down, the NSA just a bit, or the people who are trying to track the bad guys.
Yeah, one way you may look at it is that the NSA has analysts and computers who have got portals into all of our phone companies. Basically, they collect up and snatch up all the information every day, and they send it to Utah. Now they're still going to collect it all. They're just going to keep it on site at the phone company. So I think it's going to be a similar program, just in a different location. Now, my hope is that it will not be collected in bulk fashion, but I have a feeling that it still may be. And it concerns me that I think really we need to spend more time collecting the records of terrorists and less time snatching up all the records of innocent Americans.
Senator Paul, I feel like you've gotten into this vicious cycle with the media now where someone like Lindsey Graham or Peter King, they say something really mean about you, and then you respond in kind, and your response ends up being the big story. And I hate to do that to you once again, but I have to bring this one to you because I was personally offended by it. Representative Peter King yesterday, when this was signed, I don't know if you saw this, but he took to Twitter, and he said that the passage of the new rules yesterday for the NSA was a defeat for ISIS, Edward Snowden, and Rand Paul. How do you? This is your Republican colleague here lumping you together with ISIS on this.
Well, there is a saying, you never punch down, and so I don't think I need to respond to buffoonery, so.
All right. I think that was a fine response, actually. Do you mind if I shift you to some of the other things that are pressing and some of the things that Republicans are really looking at when they evaluate the candidates? I would love to hear you talk about immigration. I don't think people have heard where you stand on immigration, where you stand on protection of the border, and I believe, frankly, that Hillary Clinton saying that Obama's amnesty, executive action on amnesty, didn't go far enough, and as president, she will do more for the people who are illegally in this country. I think that could be a game changer for Republicans because most Americans don't like what we're currently doing with immigration, and they're offended by the idea of people breaking our laws, coming into our country, and getting citizenship. Where do you stand?
The number one thing you have to do is secure the border, and until we prove to the American public that we can secure the border, until we have a president who actually will enforce the laws, I think very little else can be done. The one thing I think we could do almost simultaneously, though, is try to fix the work visa program so we can document who comes in and who leaves and that we have a better awareness of who's coming into the country. I think there is a national security threat at the border, and we need to be very aware of who comes in, who leaves. But I don't think that we should eliminate work visas. In fact, I think we should probably expand work visas because people are coming to work one way or another. I'd rather them be documented and legal and not illegal. So I think if you have an adequate or a sufficient legal immigration system, you won't have as much illegal problem. But you have to secure your border first.
One quick follow-up on that, because as a libertarian, I've heard you, and I love when you wax poetic about the power of capitalism and the power of the free market. As a true free marketeer, don't you look at immigration and what's going on in our country as a supply and demand issue? And there's a demand for this cheap labor, and people are finding that supply with people crossing the border illegally. How does what you just stated with regard to securing the border and cracking down on immigration, how does that mesh with your love of the free market and the laws of supply and demand?
Well, I'm for meeting the laws of supply and demand. In fact, if you limit the supply of labor below what the market needs, people will come illegally. So you do have to match supply and demand. I do, though, agree with Milton Friedman, who many would call libertarian-leaning, that you can't have open borders in a welfare state. So when this bill came up, I introduced several amendments to try to make sure, one, that voting would not illegally occur, but also that welfare would not illegally occur. They had some limitations on welfare, but they had no way of really enforcing it. So I tried to put a provision in saying that if any state doesn't have a verification program for verifying that you're in legally, and that if they're dispensing welfare without verification, that they would lose federal money. Because I think there needs to be a hammer to tell states like California that would let probably anybody vote, and they probably would let anybody in the country, that there would be repercussions if they didn't enforce and police who's voting.
Got it. This morning, as we were preparing for the show, and actually we do prepare for the show, I came across this story in which you were questioned about a desire to get the final 9/11 report documents that have always been redacted and were not released. I want to make sure I understand what you're looking for there and what your concern is.
Well, the Congress did a report. There were a couple different reports. The 9/11 Commission report was done, but then Congress also did an investigation and a report. And the Bush administration blanked out 28 pages. Now, if you read Senator Bob Graham's book, you can find out in general terms that it's about Saudi connection to financing of the terrorists. And I think it's important for everybody to know and be able to read this. And we've asked for the president to declassify it. If there are names in it that still need to be blacked out, they can black out individual names. But most of the individual names have been reported and are online and in the media. So
right.
I really think it ought to come out because, frankly, I think Saudi Arabia's foreign policy and their desire to help us or be helpful to the civilized world needs to be examined. I mean, even in light of recent things, we've now got Saudi Arabia has indiscriminately thrown arms into that Syrian civil war, and I think some of that ended up making ISIS stronger.
And I understand now you can't look at it as a member of the Senate, correct?
No, I can't.
You can't.
Yeah, I've read the report, and I'm not allowed to talk about the specifics of it, but I can say that there's a lot of general information that is out there, but I see no reason after reading it why the general public shouldn't be allowed to read it. We had a bunch of the 9/11 families and survivors that came down to our press conference yesterday. They're very desirous of reading all of these documents.
Senator Rand Paul's our guest. His book, by the way, is called Taking a Stand, and he has taken a stand in the Senate there, standing for hours on end talking. We didn't really get into the campaign much because you're in the middle of so many issues, but let me just ask you really quickly. Scott Walker has suggested he might not campaign and fight in Florida because it's really just going to be a big spending spree between Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio. Really fast. Do you agree with that, or are you going to be fighting in every state this year?
Well, we have a great grassroots coalition really in every state, and I think that's one of our advantages is that we have organizations already forming in all the states. So we'll compete everywhere, and it's our also, I think, advantage if we can win some of the early primaries that we have staying power because of our nationwide organization.
Gotcha. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, yeah. Iowa is only 7 months away. We hope to hear from you a lot between now and then.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you.